Imagine a world before global networks, a world where computers could not predict the rise and fall of entire markets, a world where ships carried not just goods, but power, a world where a few decisions made by candlelight changed the fate of millions. Now imagine an island, small, foggy, often overlooked, surrounded by freezing waters and far more powerful rivals. That island was Britain. In the early 1600s, no one believed Britain would become a superpower. Spain ruled the oceans, with gold flowing from the Americas. Portugal controlled the sea routes of Africa and Asia. The Dutch were world leaders in trade and finance. France was Europe's military giant. But then, something unexpected happened. Britain discovered the most powerful resource in human history. Not emeralds, not gunpowder, not steel. Money, but not as gold coins. As a system, as a weapon, as a machine. The true story of the British Empire is not just about explorers or brave soldiers. It is built on capital, credit, private interests, and yes, dark money flowing behind the scenes. And to understand this rise, we need to go back to the year 1694, the birth of a financial weapon. That year, Britain did something revolutionary. It created the Bank of England. This was not a simple treasury. It was a new engine that allowed Britain to finance wars not with the money it had, but with the money it could borrow. For the first time, a nation turned debt into a weapon. Wars that bankrupted other kingdoms became manageable for Britain because merchants, wealthy families, private investors poured money into government bonds. The state gained firepower. Investors earned interest. And together, they launched a new era, the rise of the corporate empire. If the Bank of England was the heart of Britain's rise, the East India Company was its extended arm. Founded in 1600, this company was the world's first true multinational corporation. It had its own navy, its own army, the right to conquer land. It ruled over millions of people. This was not just trade. This was a full-scale corporate empire. The company extracted wealth from Bengal, Bombay, Madras, and funneled it all back to the City of London, Britain's financial center. Tea, opium, textiles, spices, everything was under the company's tight control. But this engine was not powered by trade alone. The shadow of slavery. From the 17th to the 19th century, British ships transported millions of Africans across the Atlantic. The scale of suffering, pain, and destruction is beyond measure. Yet for British merchants, sugar plantations in the Caribbean were among the most profitable investments in the world. Banks in London grew rich by financing slave ships. Insurance companies like Lloyd's of London insured human beings as cargo. And when Britain finally abolished slavery, who was compensated? Not the enslaved, the slave owners. That compensation, Britain's largest government payout until 2008, circulated through the economy for more than a century. Some families are still wealthy because of it today. The money behind the throne. History books highlight kings and admirals, but the true architects of the empire were financial elites. The Rothschild family provided massive loans to Britain throughout the Napoleonic Wars. Merchants in Manchester and Birmingham used profits from colonial markets to build factories and shape the Industrial Revolution. The London Stock Exchange became an arena where national power was bought, sold, and speculated upon. And as wealth flowed into Britain, a shadow system grew alongside it. The Opium Wars, when trade became war. Tea was Britain's national obsession. But China demanded silver in return. Britain didn't have enough silver. So what did British merchants do? They sold opium grown in India to China. Millions became addicted. Society collapsed. China tried to resist. Britain sent the Royal Navy. And so began the Opium Wars, fought not for honor or defense, but to protect drug profits. This was not the empire we are usually taught about. This was commercial violence, violence backed by cannons, the financial lifeline of the empire. By the 1800s, Britain was extracting enormous wealth from India. Economists said the wealth drained from India could have industrialized entire continents. Taxes collected from Indian farmers did not stay in India. They were used to finance British railways in Africa, trade routes in the Middle East, military campaigns in Afghanistan, profits for investors in London. Indian economist Dadabhai Naoroji called this the Great Drain, a financial pipeline pulling wealth from east to west. He was not wrong. Africa and the empire of speculation. The scramble for Africa was not just a geopolitical frenzy, it was a financial one. When diamonds were discovered in South Africa, British investors rushed in. When gold was found in the Transvaal, investors pressured the government to intervene to protect British interests. Military campaigns soon followed. Sometimes it wasn't the British government expanding the empire. It was British investors. The empire went where profit called. When war became business, by the end of the 19th century, London was the financial capital of the world. British banks financed railways in Argentina. British insurers insured sea routes in Asia. British investors poured money into African mines. British traders handled cotton from the American South. This was not just an empire on a map. It was an empire on a balance sheet. Wars were financed with bonds. Colonies were run like corporations. And debt kept the engine running. But the machine had limits. World War I, the first cracks in the imperial machine. World War I drained Britain's resources faster than ever before. For the first time, Britain borrowed heavily from the United States. A new financial power was rising across the Atlantic. Britain survived the war. But the pound never regained its former strength. And a second blow was coming. World War II, the fall of the empire. World War II ended Britain's financial dominance. To keep fighting, Britain borrowed again, this time far more from the United States. The 1946 Anglo-American Loan Agreement tied Britain's economic fate to American credit. After 1945, the dollar replaced the pound. Wall Street replaced London. America became the center of global finance. The old system had collapsed, but it didn't disappear. It evolved. The empire moved offshore. As colonies gained independence, Britain's former Caribbean and Atlantic possessions were transformed into tax havens. The Cayman Islands, Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, Jersey, Guernsey. Today, trillions of dollars flow through these centers. And many of these networks are still linked to London. This is a quieter empire, an invisible empire, an offshore empire. Soldiers became bankers. Cannons became financial instruments. The battlefield became the global market, the true legacy of dark money. So, what does all this mean? The British Empire is not just a story of explorers, red-coated soldiers, and naval battles. It is a story of corporate power, financial engineering, debt systems, exploitation, and private interests shaping public policy. The old empire may be gone, but the financial logic it created still shapes the world. Every time money moves instantly across borders, every time offshore accounts hide wealth, every time debt is used to control nations, we are watching the shadows of that empire. This is not about guilt. It's about clarity. Because when we understand how power worked in the past, we can see how it works today and how it will work tomorrow. Empires rise. Empires fall. But financial systems, they survive, adapt, and continue to shape the future. This is the story of how dark money built, fueled, and transformed one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Goodbye.